Today I fucked up by taking Viagra daily for nearly a year. For a while now, I've been feeling flushed in the face, with a ruddy complexion. My face has felt hot, prickly, and I've had a very stuffy nose, as if I'm allergic to something. Let's flash back to last April. In April last year I was prescribed fluoxetine, Prozac, due to an ongoing mental health situation, and it seemed to work for me. My mood was elevated, my temper suppressed, everything seemed to be going fine. Until I began a new relationship, and everything seemed very good. The connection was immaculate, the vibes were good, the petting was heavy. However, I began to notice that things weren't biologically rising in the way that they should. I initially chalked it up to being in my late 30s, and that these things might take some time. However, this problem persisted, and in July last year, I spoke with my general practitioner, who provided me with a prescription for sildenafil, Viagra for the layman. 100 mg of which I should take. I proceeded to take the little blue, circular 100 mg tablet every morning, alongside my vitamins and normal pills of the day. Things were never better. My sex life was enviable. I began to feel energy like I haven't felt since my teens, and my general motivation and drive seemed at an all-time high. Until the third or fourth week, that is. A colleague said to me, "Hey, looks like you've been laid out in the sun too long." "Don't think so," I responded, hurrying off to consult a mirror, to see that my visage was bright, blotchy red. I chalked it up to sunburn or an allergic reaction. For nearly a whole year, trying different creams, lotions and antihistamines to try and quell the redness. All the while experiencing tremendous tumescence, not to brag or anything. I finally booked in with a different GP, with hopes of seeing a dermatologist, to curb the red-faced woes. "You've been collecting a prescription for sildenafil every month for a year," he says, upon looking at my file. "Yeah?" I question. "You must have a big backstock by now." The doctor says, "Are you flirting with me, doc?" I reply, "Surely you aren't in need of them every day." The doctor responds, and then it all became clear. These aren't a daily medication at all. They're to be used as and when required. For those who don't know, sildenafil, Viagra, causes one's blood vessels to open more readily, causing more plentiful erections, but also flushing, sinus stuffiness, higher heart rate and a multitude of other symptoms which could be attributed to other things. TLR. I took Viagra for nearly a year because I thought it was a daily drug, not something you should take when you need it, and I ended up with a red face, both literally and metaphorically. Edit. Thank you to those who pointed out that I misspelled sildenafil. I clearly didn't even read the packet enough to get the word correct. Thank you to those who thought this could be AI-generated bollocks. I assure you, it is not. Lastly, and finally, thank you to those who called me an idiot. I couldn't agree more. But this is a learning experience, and I now know to always read the label of things that I am prescribed. I don't even know what to say. This is so idiotic that it must be true. Did you not read the instructions on the box? Something doesn't add up here. Doctors give you instructions on how to take them, and they're normally written very clearly on the container. Why would you default to taking them every day? I'm not a doctor, but starting you off on 100 milligrams seems. Well, frankly, it seems wildly excessive. Did the constant raging boners in the middle of work not clue you in? I'm a medical practitioner. This is a ridiculous story. Clearly not true. Also, given that Op seems to be replying to every comment, the purpose of this post is obviously to get Reddit points. Today I fucked up by thinking my date was asking for a hug, not a Heimlich. Last week, I, 29M, went on a second date with a woman I really like, 28F. We went to a cozy pasta place, and it was going great, laughing, sharing bites, chemistry was there. Then she started choking. She made a weird noise and stood up suddenly, clutching her chest. I stood up too, panicked, and thought she was just overwhelmed or emotional. In my adrenaline-fueled idiocy, I pulled her into a hug. She tried to push me away but couldn't speak. A waiter tackled her from behind and performed the Heimlich. Out popped a piece of calamari. She was fine. Me? Mortified. She didn't say anything at first. Then she started laughing hysterically and said, "Did you really just try to love me back to life?" We're still talking, somehow. But she now calls me CPR, cuddle performing rescuer. Too long did not read. My date choked and I thought she wanted a hug. Waiter saved her life. I looked like a clown. She's laughing about you almost killing her. She likes you. Make jokes about cutting her food up smaller so you don't risk making that mistake again. Please, for the sake of humanity, try to recognize non-human generated text. Which version of ChatGPT did you use to write this? OMG, yay, another obvious AI story that everyone is falling for. Clearly she doesn't hold a grudge, and thought it was funny. Wear your new name with honor, and offer to puree her food for her lol. Yeah, no. This is pure AI fiction. Today I fucked up by going on a hot tub date. Pretty straightforward story. There's a hot tub place I have gone to for years. I visited back in March and wanted to go again and figured I'd bring a date this time. Packed my swim trunks and went off to have a relaxing evening. Get there, there's a little locker room type room where you can shower and change clothes, and I'm in there getting ready while date is waiting on the hot tub. I stripped down to slide on my swim trunks and they won't go over my thighs. Same trunks I wore back in March and they were always a little tight but not this bad. There was no squeezing into the shorts. I looked like I was trying to wear a child's clothes. After a few minutes of struggling, I accepted that it's time to retire the shorts. This is how I learned I need to lay off the pizza for a while. Ended up hot tubbing in my boxers. Still a good date, but maybe future dates will consist of me trying on clothes ahead of time to ensure they fit. Too long did not read. I got too fat to wear my swim trunks. There's so much weird shit going on here. 1. This hot tub establishment exists. 2. They don't care if you just wear your boxers instead of a proper swimsuit. 3. Your date agreed to go to this establishment on a date. 4. Your date didn't get an emergency phone call from one of their friends as soon as you rolled out in your boxers. 5. You capped off this romantic evening where you found out you were embarrassingly heavier than you were 4 months ago by going to Burger King. Diet time, bro. Pizza giveth waste, pizza taketh swim trunks away. The real fuck up here is that you decided to flavor the tub with your scrote brine cheesecloth. What kind of establishment is like, just wear whatever, chlorine won't fail us here? Wait a minute, you said it was a date. There is no weird, hot tub place. You went to a rub and tug. A few years more and the belly will overhang so far they won't be able to tell if you're wearing trunks anyway. I'm more flabbergasted at the existence of public hot tub places specifically meant for meeting people. I feel like regardless of how the date went, the yeast infection would give me pause. Today I fucked up by collecting weird VHS tapes and my parents finding out eventually. Obligatory. This happened 3 years ago. Once, in 2018, I was intrigued by the sight of what people call funny fail videos on the internet. I was a young boy, just fresh from a quite popular site called LiveLeak, a site depicting blundery or blooper-worthy mistakes made by your average working man, most of the time consisting of workplace accidents. Then came a fascination of gore. I found every type of gore interesting to see, everything but aftermaths, not going further into that. I eventually stumbled onto a site called Best Gore. This site was quite minimal, having but a gray, blackish background, your typical gore ads. Well, only consisting of porn, really. And the front page, in which a woman being impaled was depicted on the banner. The site looked quite dull, which was perfect for that genre, being gritty and grotesque. The videos were quite the same. You weren't going to be having a joy feeling after watching them, nor would the site give you any feeling of hope. The site had some weird categories listed on the right side of the screen, consisting of weird gore, porn, quite literally, to categories such as beheadings or shootings. But it had one interesting category, or at least to me, called documentaries. On here there were some docus about the bloodbath of Tlatelolco and some weird, conspiracy-like documentary about how every pharmacy is lying to you. These diseases are fake. Type of rubbish, which, yes, I actually watched. One stood out to me, a documentary called Faces of Death. The cover looked quite interesting, as did the pictures when I searched it on Google. Here's where things all went downhill, if you will. Hey, that rhymes. FOD eventually lead me to watch the second installment, then the third, and eventually the fourth, which led me to Traces of Death, which led me to different sites, one of which was fedupmovies.com. This was a perfect site for my edgy little teenage self, because it consists, yes, it still does, of the weirdest, most damned movies you've ever seen. At some point I'd have watched almost any weird movie out there, from Voci de Noces to Sul contra Tus, heck, even Necrofiles, lol. Let's just say, I knew quite some weird sites. So I thought to myself, why not have these movies physically, so I can watch them on VHS and boost the experience even further? In the words of Dave Mustaine, next mistake, no more mistakes. Well, Dave Mustaine, no more mistakes, because I did actually make way more mistakes. I visited every site I could, from a German site, made for selling DVDs, CDs, console and PC games and VHS tapes, to a Spanish, eBay-like, site, to eBay itself, and so forth. Thus, I started collecting. So, fast forward some 2/3 of a year later, I had a separate bedroom all for myself. This bedroom, apart from the basic things you'd see in there, consisted of 2 desks. Those 2 desks had 3 drawers each. The desks were eventually filled to the brim, consisting of tapes so vile, you'd think that you were looking into the drawers of a serial killer, but instead of that, You were looking straight into the drawers of some edgy teenage kid, but you'd still ask yourself, why? Then, the time came to move out of the house, because I was gonna be having a place of my own, so my dad had to disassemble the desks. Which eventually lead to the fact that he discovered all those gory, vile and downright shocking tapes I kept laying in the drawers. At first I didn't think a lot of the fact, but eventually the realization came. My dad just discovered my weird tapes of, to name the ones I'm most embarrassed about. A VHS tape of Schramm, a German movie from the 90s, look it up at your own discretion. A DVD of both Necromantic 1 and 2, again, it's weird, look it up at your own discretion. A whole DVD collection of Guinea Pig, complete with shirt and poster. A Traces of Death DVD collection, probably bootleg, the sheath had some wild pictures on them. A VHS tape of Death Filed 2 Feet, a Japanese video comparable to Traces of Death. Why did I collect these? I thought they were cool to have physically, because they were quite rare and expensive, mind you. I had way more than these listed, enough to, well, fit 6 drawers. Eventually my dad mentioned it, we were driving to my house, my mother next to him. I did not know what to say, he sounded quite mad, and, to be honest, he and I were both as embarrassed, probably. I must have been looking like a serial killer to them. The fact is I never told them why I collected these, but no matter what I'd say, it would not make that situation any better anyway. To this day, I myself am questioning myself why I even bothered to collect these physically, at that quantity, at my parents' house, but I think I like the idea of having these kind of things physically. Not only that, but the media itself being watched on a VHS gave some kind of eerie feeling. Now, fast forward again, 2.5 years later, we haven't talked about it since. It has become, for a lack of better words, a taboo, though. The tapes are still there, in a plastic bag, just sitting there, being €2,000 worth of tapes. Yes, I was that dumb. Too long did not read. I had weird VHS tapes laying in some drawers at my parents' house. Eventually I had to move to live on my own, so my dad had to disassemble the desks and discovered the grotesque tapes I was collecting. 7:10 a.m. That's probably enough internet for today. I am sure what I am about to say gets suggested in online chat sites with incredible frequency, to the point that it just becomes white noise, so with that in mind. Lad, have you considered getting some professional help? I'm not trying to be smart here, and I am not trying to judge. But watching those videos as a teen to the point of wanting to collect physical copies of them is not what most would consider to be normal behavior. You yourself have said, serial killer, a couple of times up there. Again, no judgment, but please, maybe just check in with a professional and have a chat with them about this. Everyone has their thing, yours is reveling in gore and death. I don't mean to yuck your yum, but damn. To this extent it's transcending morbid curiosity and is a bit concerning. I was fascinated by serial killers and gore growing up. In my case I was freaking tortured by abusive people for a lot of my childhood, so it kind of turned me onto that I think. I'd spend hours reading about Ed Gein and shit. Wishing I could be strong enough to I guess defeat all my abusers. Sad in retrospect. But yeah, it's still fucked up some parts of my brain I think. I know there are lots of other kids who grew up with the wild uncensored internet back in the day. Before the dark web. I don't think you're alone. AI drivel. 2 years ago. 2018. VHS. Not adding up here.